Hey, it's Danny from projectmetaverse.com. If you are thinking of becoming a project manager, this is the video for you. Today, I'm going to take it back to basics and I'm going to explain what a project is, and I'll give you some context of what it's like in the real world, in the IT world, if you're doing an IT project. What does it entail? What kind of projects will you be running, and what are some of the hallmarks of projects, and what is it really like in the real world? So let's jump in. So let's start right at the beginning. I wanted to get a classic definition of a project to kick this video off with. So I've got this definition from Project Management Institute, PMI, and they describe it as a project is a temporary endeavor with a clear start and end that's undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. That's a nice, short, clean definition, I think, of a project that describes it very well. And they give some features of a project. So not features, some hallmarks, let's say. Number one, they say it's temporary, and projects have a beginning and an end and are different from day-to-day activities. That is a very clear distinction of a project. It's not something that just carries on forever. There's a clear start date and a clear end date. They are temporary things. They're not permanent. They're not BAU or business as usual activities that you'd run in the operations. Number two, they say they're unique. So projects are different from previous assignments and current product services offerings. And that is very true. Every project is unique by definition. You'll never have the exact same project twice. You'll have similar projects, similar themes, similar veins, similar risks and issues, similar problems, but the actual project itself is always unique. And although they might be similar, you learn something new on every single project. And the last hallmark they give is projects are goal orientated. Projects are undertaken to achieve a specific objective with a defined time frame, budget, and scope. And that is a very important distinction, because projects must have a clear scope. You must frame the work you are doing and say what you're not doing and say what you are doing. So they're very, as I say, it's very goal orientated. You've got a clear set of objectives you're trying to meet, that you're trying to deliver, and that's packaged up within the scope of the project, and that has to be done in a certain time frame to a certain budget. So that's generally what the project is. Now, in the IT world, I'd say a typical project that you get would probably last between 6 months and a year. That's probably the average kind of time you'd be spending on a project. Some projects do last longer than that. Some projects can last up to 2 years. Some can go longer, but typically, as a project manager doing IT projects, your projects are going to be between 6 months and a year. Sometimes you get shorter ones, very rarely, but usually if it's a fairly chunky project, you're going to need at least 6 months to get it going and complete it. Budget-wise, so how much money is spent on projects? Well, if you're working for a big organizations, you'll probably be spending hundreds of thousands of pounds per project, sometimes millions. So a good, big, decent project that lasts about a year will most likely cost between 500k and £1 million. And that is to pay for mostly resources. Mostly that money goes towards resources, either hiring resources within the company or paying for resources within the company, or you're hiring external resources. And then you'll have things like license costs and hardware costs. But in my experience, most of the budget is eaten up on resources. They can be quite expensive. You're paying for people's day rates, and if you have someone full-time on your project for a year, basically a year's salary, so you can do the math. It does add up, but yeah, that's where most of the budget goes. So that's the kind of numbers you'll be working with. And when you first take on your big project, let's say it's £1 million budget, that can be a bit intimidating at first, but you get used to those numbers very quickly. And projects are very controlled, so it's not like you have that money in your bank account as a project manager and you're at risk of blowing it all. It's all very controlled, and you don't have access to the cash directly, so you can't go off and spend it any way you want to. But you are responsible for that budget, so it is something to think about, and think about that responsibility if you want to become a project manager. There are some big numbers involved. Scope. So yeah, as I say, this channel is all about IT project management. So it's going to be IT projects, and usually IT projects are evolving around software, either creating new software, changing software, upgrading software, or it could be something to do with the infrastructure the software sits on, like upgrading databases, migrating databases to the cloud. You might want to update your servers, those kind of things. So it's always IT related, but usually it's around software. Now, why do we use projects? What's the point of it? Why can't we just do change in a different way? Well, for the most part, projects do actually work, although you do hear a lot that projects often fail, and they do. But in a big organization where you've got a well-established project management department, a portfolio, the projects do usually get done, and they've been tried and tested, and people have been using projects and project management for many years. So it's a safe way of doing it. It's trusted. People know it does work, and it provides confidence as well, because if you say we're going to do this change or deliver this change by a project, immediately you know there's going to be some control around it. There's going to be a start date and an end date. There's going to be a clear scope in what's supposed to be delivered. You know, you're going to have some governance around it, some controls around it. So immediately if you hear we're doing it for a project, if it's done properly, you're going to have some confidence about the method of change that's being applied to do the project or do the piece of work. So what kinds of projects do you have in the IT world? Well, there's three main categories, but there's others as well, but I'll talk about the three main ones. So first of all, it's run the business or keep the lights on. And that is to essentially do just that. It's to keep the business going. So you might have to upgrade some software because it's going out of support with the vendors. So you're on version 2.0, the vendor's now on version 5, so you've fallen behind. So you need to upgrade that software to keep the product in support on the support contract. So keeping things going, you might have some creaky servers you need to upgrade. So things that you have to do to keep the business running. It's maintenance, basically essential maintenance to keep the software going, to keep the business running. That's your first category. Second category is LRM, or legal, regulatory, or mandatory. And those are things that you kind of have to do because of there might be a change in the law or change in some regulations. There might be a regulator out there. If you're in the financial services, there's lots of regulations around finance. If you're in the health industry, I'm sure there's loads of, or medical industry, I'm sure there's loads of regulations around that. Or whatever industry you're in construction, there's going to be regulations. There might be a new regulation that comes out, which means, right, you need to respond to that, put some changes in, and that is done through a project. So those projects you've got to spend money on. There's no way of getting around them. If you don't do them, then you're at risk of breaching the regulations, which could have consequences, or breaching the law, which obviously could have consequences. You could have fines. So those kind of projects just have to be done, and the money has to be found to do them. The third main category is strategic projects, and these are more about trying to stay in line with the company's strategy, and they're usually around cutting costs or increasing profit, one of those two. And yeah, they're more strategic, they're more fancy, they're more fun usually, they're a bit more exciting, and they could be around or based around continuous improvement. So you're looking at a process and you're trying to lean it down, make it more efficient, or you're just trying to make it better, improve some kind of metrics, improve conversion if you're in sales, or improve ticket value if you're selling a product. Those kind of projects are a bit more exciting. But yeah, those are the three categories of projects you'll typically be working on if you go into the IT project management world. So you've got to keep the lights on, or run the bank, run the business. You've got your LRMs, your legal, regulatory, mandatory stuff that you have to do because of legal changes or regulation changes. And then you've got your more strategic projects that are more about cutting costs or in maximizing profit, that are a bit more exciting to do. So my observations on projects in the real world is that they are often late. You often set a delivery date or a target delivery date, and they're not often met. The projects tend to slip, and they tend to be expensive, and the budget goes up. You don't stick to budget. I say that's my observation. In my projects, I don't do that, and that's the important thing you need to remember if you want to be a good project manager and you want to have a higher salary and get more leverage to negotiate that salary. Because if you can have a track record of always delivering your projects on time when you said they were going to be delivered, you are actually saving the company a lot of money. Some of these projects will, cost $100,000 a month to run at least, or if you don't hit the deadline, there'll be fines or other financial consequences that could cost the company millions of pounds. And if you just have an average project manager on those projects and they fail to meet those deadlines, it's costing the company a lot of money. But if you are one of the best project managers and you always deliver, you're basically saving the company millions of pounds with every project you do. So for your little, little old you, the project manager, you can negotiate a good salary, because if you can articulate the projects you've done and the money you've saved the company, it shows how valuable you are to the company. Because not many project managers, in my experience, have the ability to always deliver their projects on time. But if you can do that, then that puts you in a very good stead to negotiate a better salary and earn the bigger money, get the bigger projects, and have more trust and authority, and have a better career ultimately. Okay, I hope that was useful for you. So that's basically what a project is. That's a very superficial taste of what it's like in the IT project management world, but hopefully it's given you some idea. So give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this one, I'm doing daily videos, hit that subscribe button, and until tomorrow, please take care.